Welcome back, guys, to the Leprechaun review series, and let me introduce you to the Leprechaun film called Leprechaun Origins that literally has nothing to do with Warwick Davis or the traditional Leprechaun that you've seen the last 6 times, or any kind of lore that any of this franchise had previously. And this one, for that specific reason alone, is absolutely despised by most people. I myself, when I was binging through these for the first time, some of them I had watched before, but others not, including this one. So when I got to Leprechaun Origins for the first time, it shocked me. I got some hints from like the poster and everything that they were probably going to take a little bit of a different direction. But man, I was surprised to know that it had no humor to it. This is a straight up horror film, specifically a creature feature. It's basically a monster movie. And I dug that, but I was really shocked and very taken aback on how different it felt. I mean, there's no comedy whatsoever in this film. And if you took the Leprechaun name out of it, which is probably what they should have done, I think this film would probably be liked and respected a lot more. But because it's connected to the Leprechaun franchise and departs completely, I don't mean like a lot, I mean completely departs. I think a lot of people took issue with that, which makes total sense. However, judging this film by itself as a random film that has nothing to do with the Leprechaun series other than name, called Leprechaun Origins, I think it's a cool creature feature. Honestly, I have no problems with this film as a standalone personally. I think it checks all the boxes when it comes to a monster movie. Although you get a lot of shaky camera to the point where it almost feels found footage. The creature design is fine. I wish we saw him a little bit more, and I wish the camera wasn't so shaky. I think they used that on purpose to take some liberties because they probably didn't have the best costume design or the best CGI, so they wanted to try and leave everything to the imagination. The guy who plays the Leprechaun in this film really, in my opinion, seems a little bit pointless because he's completely in full makeup, so you don't really see the guy anyway, and you don't see a lot of the monster to begin with as well. And he's also seemingly blended with a lot of CGI. So the guy, Dylan Hornswoggle Postal, who plays the Leprechaun, apparently he's a wrestler and also a little person. It literally could be anybody playing the monster. I mean, the monster is pretty big in and of itself, so like, it doesn't look human at all. It just looks like a pure, like, four-legged kind of monstrous devil, pretty much. So you don't even get, like, the essence of the actor himself in the monster, because all you see is any standard kind of typical creature you would see in any creature feature. But what we have going on here is basically these young 20-somethings are touring Ireland, and they're on vacation, and 2 of them are in school. You get 4 of them. You got Ben and Sophie, who are a couple, and then you got David and Jenny, who are also a couple. So it's basically 2 couples traveling, and they're through Ireland. They're basically in the countryside, and then they discover this like small kind of country bar kind of thing. Very, very local stuff. Think American Werewolf in London kind of idea. They meet this guy named Hamish in there, and they basically just stop in for some pints, and Hamish starts to tell them a little bit about the lore because Sophie herself is a bit of like a history buff, and she, for university, has this like thesis to make or something. And he tells her about these like stone relics and this little part of Ireland that basically isn't able to be found on a map. And he goes on about, you know, basic ancient lore that only like locals know about, and he's offering them to basically show them this little tiny part of Ireland that's very secluded and basically no one knows about. A little bit of a sketchy sell, obviously, and the fact that these kids just go along with it is kind of typical horror lore kind of stereotypes in a sense. Amish, or Hamish, however you pronounce it, has a couple sons named Sean and Ian, there you go. And he takes them, and he says it's going to be like a 7-hour trip or something, and there's a stop in the way where he knows of a cabin in the woods. So there's another thing in this film that I really appreciate. I like the cabin in the woods idea of things, and the fact that this movie basically is about a cabin in the woods, bunch of kids, in an isolated place and then a monster comes. Those things I really like in films and in cinema. So that type of horror speaks to me, and that's why I think I got behind this film a lot. But Amish leaves them in this house overnight because he says that the next day they're going to continue their hike to get to the location. However, a creature comes, and we learn throughout the film that Hamish actually had this planned where the creature is a leprechaun. And I didn't do too much history, but I wonder if the traditional leprechaun from Ireland, like what we know of for Paddy's Day, actually stems from something a little bit more horrific and something a little bit more urban legend style. That would be cool. I'd like to see if like the leprechaun monster type in this film is actually based on something. But Hamish's plan was to put these kids in this home so that the leprechaun can basically feast on them, because he was offering these kids as a sacrifice, because way back in the day, him and some other villagers went to steal the leprechaun's gold, and in doing so they kind of owe the leprechaun, so they owed them human sacrifices, and Hamish basically looks out for outsiders basically from wherever. These just so happen to be from America, and he offers them to the leprechaun essentially, and from there it's just the leprechaun attacking them. You got a lot of POV style from the leprechaun, which is an artistic choice that I'm kind of meh on. But one thing I did like, as I already mentioned, is the creature design and a lot of the violence and gore in this film. So a lot of things really worked for me basically. And I like the whole like Irish landscape, Irish countryside kind of setting. So when it comes to horror creature features, this one, like I said, it offers a lot that I like, so I could definitely get behind it a little bit. These kids are pretty basic. You got Brendan Fletcher in here playing David, and I do like Brendan Fletcher from the Rampage series that I recently reviewed on the channel. You can go check that out. And there's not a whole lot to talk about because, like I said, the film's premise is pretty basic. There's a lot of things that happen in this film that you've seen in other things before. A lot of ideas played with that you've seen in a lot of things before. The CGI is not that great, especially when it comes to gore scenes. There's this one in particular where this girl, the leprechaun, kind of tricks the kids, and one of the girls is supposed to like shut the door so that the leprechaun can be in the room with these kids with axes, and they can like hack the leprechaun down, but the leprechaun outsmarts everybody and kind of turns around and pushes the girl into the room, so they're hacking at the girl instead. And you get like the girl getting an axe to the face, and the CGI just looks terrible in that scene specifically. But there's other kills too, where you get one guy and he has his spine just completely ripped out from his back from the leprechaun, and that looked cool. I'm pretty sure that was CGI too, but that worked, and that was pretty sinister, and you definitely... It's a good gross out gag that I really got behind. And there is some brutal scenes in this film that definitely work. At the end of the film, the main character, Sophie, you can call her the final girl, out-tricks the leprechaun and defeats the leprechaun by throwing some gold in the air, and then she busts out the famous "Fuck you, Lucky Charms" from the first film, which happens to connect this film to the Leprechaun series even more, but not in a good way, because that line is classic, and it's probably one of the only iconic lines in the entire Leprechaun franchise. So to connect this one, which is so in its own direction compared to the other movies, and use that line, I think that line specifically rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and I've heard from other reviews that line rubbed people the wrong way. It just feels wrong to use, kind of thing, because it's so classic, but it is what it is. And then yeah, she throws the gold, she's like, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms," and then she grabs an axe and hacks the leprechaun's head off, and then it basically just ends from there. She's like the only one standing, kind of thing, the last one standing. But I liked also the character development with Hans and Ian and Sean, because Sean is the one character that sees this whole situation as fucked up, and he starts, like, he has a heart, where Hamish basically has no heart whatsoever and doesn't give a shit about outsiders and feeding them to the leprechaun. He just considers outsiders and they're meaningless. But Sean, has a heart, and he kind of starts to do everything he can to aid the kids in getting away, even at one point like risking his life a lot to do so. And he turns on Hamish, and I think Hamish is his dad actually. yeah, like I like his character kind of arc in helping the kids and everything. But yeah, the biggest thing I can say about this film is I totally understand people's beef with it, but it did work for me because, like I said, as a separate monster movie, this film does what I like in monster movies. I could do without a lot of the shaky camera, to be honest, but the setting and the monster itself was great, and I like the idea of having a monster leprechaun kind of thing, because you've never really seen that ever in this series, being that it played kind of comedy forward. But in any other horror movie, like I can't name a horror movie that has a leprechaun as a villain. So, like, I mean, outside of Warwick Davis, like being a little funny gremlin kind of villain, I mean like an actual vicious monster villain kind of thing. I've never heard of one. So this film is fine for me. I understand if you hate it, but for me it works, and know who you are going into it, basically. I know this one in this review series departed so much, but it's part of the series, so you gotta review it. So let me know what you think if you watched it. If you watched it already, let me know what you think. And we only got one more to go, so we're almost there. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.